We are next going to talk about the Pythagorean Theorem. In this video, you will learn how to find the missing sides of a right triangle using the Pythagorean Theorem. First, we're going to talk about the vocabulary. We have the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is the side opposite the right angle in a right triangle. So right here we have a right triangle drawn. Here is our right angle. Okay, opposite that right angle is the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is also the longest side in a right triangle. All right, the other two legs that the right angle forms are the other parts, those are called the legs. These are the sides that are made up from the right angle. Those are your legs of your triangle. All right, now the Pythagorean theorem, I believe you have seen this before. You have, in a right triangle, the sum of the squares of the lengths of the legs is equal to the square of the length of the hypotenuse, or also known as a squared plus b squared equals c squared. A and b are the legs, and c is the hypotenuse. So we are going to use this formula today to find missing sides of triangles. All right, so let's look at our first example using the Pythagorean theorem. We want to find the lengths of the missing sides in the following triangles. Okay, letter A says, what is the length of the hypotenuse of a triangle whose leg lengths are 9 centimeters and 12 centimeters? Now we can draw out this triangle if we want to. We are missing the hypotenuse, which is always the C. Okay, we're given the legs. The legs are 9 and 12, so we're going to fill in 9 and 12 for the legs. We're going to use the formula a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So 9 and 12 are going to go in for a and b, and then c will be our unknown. It doesn't matter which one you plug in for a, which one you plug in for b. We'll just do 9 squared plus 12 squared equals c squared. So now we're going to take 9 squared, that gives us 81, plus 12 squared, that gives us 144, equals c squared. Now we go ahead and add the 81 and the 144. All right, so that's going to give us 225 equals c squared. And then what we have to do from this point is we're trying to get c by itself. Right now we know c squared is 225. In order to get the c by itself, to undo the square on a c, we take the square root of both sides. Okay, when we take the square root of both sides, the square and the square root cancel and you're left with c. And then just take the square root of 225, which is 15. So we know that c, the hypotenuse, is 15 centimeters. Okay, and that's how we find the missing length using the Pythagorean theorem. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to letter B. Letter B, this time, let's draw a picture. We have our right triangle. All right, so what is the length of a leg of a triangle if the hypotenuse is 8 miles? So now we have the hypotenuse, if you remember, that's our C. So this time we actually have C. And then the other leg is 4 miles. So one of these legs is 4. All right, so now we're either missing A or B. It doesn't matter which one we use as our unknown. We'll just go ahead and use A. Okay, so in our formula we have A squared plus B squared equals C squared. But this time we're going to leave A alone. Okay, we're going to leave A as A squared because that's our unknown. Plus b squared, that's 4 squared. We could just as easily have left b the unknown instead of a. It really doesn't matter which one is your unknown. Equals, but then this absolutely has to go in the spot where c is because it is the hypotenuse and the hypotenuse is always c. So that equals 8 squared. All right, so we get a squared plus 4 squared is 16 equals 8 squared, which is 64. Now, this is how this turns out differently than letter A did, because now what we have to do is we have to get a squared by itself. Up here, c squared was already by itself, but down here we need to get this by itself. So we're going to subtract 16 from both sides of our equation. All right, so we get a squared equals 48. And then we take the square root of both sides, and we get a equals, all right, and then we just take the square root of 48. So the square root of 48, okay, we're going to go ahead and just round to the nearest tenth. If I don't specify, you want to round to the nearest tenth. So we get 6.9, and that is in miles. So we get 6.9 miles. So that's how we use Pythagorean theorem when the leg is missing, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and turn over to the back. All right, we have a fire truck parked beside a building such that the base of the ladder is 16 feet from the building. Fire truck extends its ladder 30 feet. How high is the top of the ladder to the ground? So we need to draw a picture here. We have our building, okay? This is our building. And then we have a ladder that is the base of the ladder is 16 feet from the building. That's going to be this length right here. This is 16 feet. And then we have a ladder that goes up to the building. Now that ladder's height is 30 feet. Okay, it's very important that you draw pictures on these types of problems so you can see which one is your hypotenuse. In this case, our ladder is our hypotenuse. So we will call this, I'm going to leave this leg as just A. So we'll leave A as our unknown this time. So we have a squared plus b squared. The other leg is the 16. 16 squared equals 30 squared. All right, so we get a squared plus 16 squared is 256. 30 squared, you're going to get 900. All right, and then again, we have to get a squared by itself. So we're going to subtract 256 from both sides. So we get a squared equals, and then 900 minus 256, we get 644. Now that a squared is by itself, we take the square root of both sides, so we get a equals, and then the square root of 644 will give you 25. We'll just round again to the nearest tenth. We get 25.4 feet. So that's how tall the ladder sits on the building. It's 25.4 feet from the ground. So that's how you use it in a story problem. You want to draw the picture. If you don't draw the picture, it's really hard to be able to visualize what you're supposed to do. All right. The second part of these notes is finding the converse of the Pythagorean theorem. Basically what that means is we're going to determine whether the triangle, they're going to give us three sides, we're going to determine if that triangle is a right triangle or not. Okay, in order to be a right triangle, this a squared plus b squared equals c squared has to be a true statement. So basically what we do is, let's look at example 3, letter A. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. In order for this to be a right triangle, we have to plug these amounts in for a, b, and c, and we have to see if we get a true statement. Now, you always, on these problems, the biggest number is c, always. Okay, you take your biggest number, and that's what you're going to plug in for c. So in this case, we're going to plug 13 in for c. So we're going to get 5 squared plus 12 squared. We want to know, I'm going to put a little question mark by our equal sign, and we want to know if it equals 13 squared. So we're going to go through and put this in our calculator. We get 5 squared, that gives us 25, plus 12 squared, which is 144. We want to know, is it equal to 13 squared, which is 169? When we add these together, we are in fact going to get 169 does equal 169. So then we say, yes, it's a right triangle. All right. So we're going to say, yes, it is a right triangle because those are equal to each other. Let's try the next one. Our C is going to be 12 because it's the biggest. So we have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So we have 7 squared plus 9 squared. We want to know, is it equal to 12 squared? All right. On the left, we have 7 squared, which is 49. Add that to 9 squared, which is 81. And that's going to equal 12 squared, which is 144. We want to know, do those equal? All right, 49 plus 81 is going to be 130. Okay, 130 does not equal 144, so we would say no, it is not a right triangle. And that is how you decide if a triangle is a right triangle. And that is a review on the Pythagorean theorem. Thank you for watching.